And there was another study that was done in 2017 where they found 10% of pre-workout energy supplements and weight loss supplements, roughly 9 to 10%, had banned stimulants in them.
I can believe that because like a lot of pre-workouts, even just on marketing and advertising, are like, this shit will fucking kill you. You're
Absolutely.
like, really? It's like, no, seriously, it might kill you. You're like, I love it. Give me 2 scoops. Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization, and I'm here with my esteemed colleague and guest, Dr. Eric Helms, for 3D Muscle Journey. And Eric has been doing some digging, and he has found something in the supplement industry that I consider at least concerning. Now, to put all of my cards on the table, generally, I'm an anti-conspiracy theorist. I think almost all conspiracy theorists are insane people, and all conspiracy theorists, almost all, are insane. I also do not like anti-corporate propaganda or even nuance. So I think when someone's like, yeah, the supplement industry is like, great, government's going to be better. Government has a great track record. But the ultimate thing I'm very concerned with is integrity and truth. And for a proper capitalist system to work, we need to understand what is in our supplements. Eric, welcome. And what is in our supplements?
Yeah, it's the problem is what is sometimes not in your supplements. Like we've learned, turkesterone supplements may not have turkesterone in them.
Nor does turkesterone, even if present, do anything. But please continue.
Well, that's something we've known about the supplement industry for a long time.
Yeah.
There's a handful of supplements that do something, yet there's far more than a handful of supplements.
Yes.
That's not new news. And I think, this is something for those who want to really do a deep dive and watch more in this video. If you like reading, there's a free article that came out that I wrote originally for Mass Research Review that is now freely available because I think it's an important topic. So you can definitely check that out. I'm sure we can have the link in the description. But I think most people, when they view the risk to reward ratio of supplements, they generally view it as, you know what? I watch Dr. Mike. I know supplements are only going to take me so far. I know it's like creatine, caffeine, maybe a couple others depending upon my goals.
Literally.
Maybe take some protein if I have trouble hitting my targets. But, this new supplement came out. It's got half of a decent study that might indicate something could be happening. I have some disposable income. What's the downside?
$30.
Right? And it's not hard for me to take an extra pill when I do in the morning. So the evaluated risk of kind of the meme we always say in the evidence-based community, it's neutral to positive, just for some cost. So they evaluate it as low risk, low potential for reward. Why not?
Sure.
And I think, unfortunately, unlike certain strategies that you might do in training or trying certain things with nutrition, where there probably is no downside, but there may not be an upside, but you could do it, that's not the way we should be evaluating supplements, especially if you're a drug-tested athlete or honestly just generally interested in health.
Yeah, I think everyone's generally interested in health.
Yeah.
And I'll add to your point by saying definitely for drug-tested athletes if there's other crap in there, but also for even also enhanced athletes, specifically people looking to peak for their best look and their best body composition. If you have substances in there that are doing things to your body water and your look, which you don't want, and you don't think you're on them because you're not on them because you're just taking whey protein, but it has like fucking D-ball in it and it waters you up to some level, you could be I didn't plan this thing. Like, all the people that are enhanced are perfectly fine getting exactly all their drugs from exactly where they think they're getting the drugs. Nobody trying to get extra drugs that you don't know what they are in your supplements. So to that point, Eric, what is the bad news? Yeah,
so I won't bury the lead, but there is some nuance to discuss after I talk about this. This has been something that's been documented, believe it or not, for over 2 decades.
I've been aware of it for a long time.
Yeah, so if we go back 2 decades to the point where the Dietary Supplement Control Act of 2004 came out in the US, which was basically a clarification saying, hey, anything with hormonal products is considered steroids and therefore regulated under this. And that was in response to the pro-hormone era.
Yes.
And it was right around the same time when they dragged out Canseco, Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, and had like the government hearing.
The Andro era.
Yes. It was right in the mid-2000s where you could go to GNC or on bodybuilding.com and just purchase things that are actually just steroids.
Just steroids. There's a GNC lockbox thingy where it's glass and then you unlock it and Turbo 1AD.
Yes. So there was actually a 2004 analysis where they purposely sampled hundreds of non-hormonal products and then they tested
claimed
them.
non-hormonal products.
Correct. So
Sorry, Eric. Give us an example, because I just fucking get tired of the generalities. Like, what are we talking about? Like, because it was creatine, was it whey protein,
caffeine, whey
protein,
absolutely,
pre-workout supplements,
100%.
Any vitamin and mineral supplement. Yep. Oh my god,
a whole line of stuff.
Just all the shit at the fucking GNC, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
And then they classified the companies that sold them as either they have no hormonal products in their product line. They're not selling pro hormones, they're not selling DHEA, anything like that. Or companies that also sold them.
Right.
And then they tested hundreds of products, I think roughly 600 something. And they wanted to look at the rate at which they were adulterated, which just means they had a contamination, something wasn't on the label that should have been there. And on the whole, 14% of them had something not on the label that was hormonal, typically a banned substance.
Yeah.
And when they delineated it based upon whether the company was selling a hormonal product in their product line or not, it changed a little bit, but it was still pretty stark. It was like 9% in the companies without any hormonal products and around 25% in the companies that did sell hormonal products.
So that 9%, let's zoom in on that.
Yeah.
You run a company ostensibly does not make any hormonal products. You test your products, and for you specifically in that 9% demographic, you have a high enough level of hormonal contaminant that at least registered on a detection scale. My quick question to you on that is, are these physiologically relevant amounts, or is it like technically seawater has uranium in it and I probably just breathed in a couple of uranium molecules right now, but it doesn't matter because the sun's a fucking nuclear bomb and who gives a shit? Where are we talking about with these effects here?
Unfortunately, a wide range. And
oh shit.
Yeah. The probably less of an issue back in 2004, and specifically in the companies that weren't selling it. And that's because anti-doping technology has gotten more and more and more precise over time. Yeah. So the issue is really, in some cases, for tested athletes, a little bit different from the enhanced and all that. Because if you're taking a product that is a low enough dosage that has no physiological effect, it probably is still enough to pop.
The worst possible combination.
Yeah, you're getting no benefit.
You're like, you're on Winstrol. You're like, I am?
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. This was a 2004 study. This is actually right around the time where these companies were trying to sell off their products and pro hormones were rampant on the market. And the companies that did not have hormonal products, then you're going, well, why is that happening? Well, the issue is one step up the product.
Yes.
Oh, one step up the chain. It's at the manufacturer. So all these manufacturers are being asked to make hormonal products. So it's in the shipping container, or it's, say, on the actual equipment.
Yes.
Now, to speak to what you were talking earlier about the way the supplement industry is regulated, and it's not just the U.S., it is all what I would describe as post-market or post-hoc regulation. Unlike, say, the pharmaceutical industry, where you have to go through clinical trials, in vitro trials, and animal trials over multiple years to prove both safety and efficacy.
Yeah.
And then the company itself has to decide, is there a large enough effect for this to be profitable for us to even make it?
Sure.
The supplement industry, I could literally, in most countries, decide to go in my bathroom.
Yeah.
And I could mix together
pill bottle, a pill.
I make a little pill maker. Or if I want, I could just put flour in a tub with good marketing that says protein on it.
Yeah.
And I could sell it.
Sure.
Now, immediately, someone would probably go, what the hell? This is flour in a tub with labeled protein. And then the FDA would do something.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., there was a classic act, a law passed back in the day where supplements were regulated differently than food.
Yeah.
Because they're supposedly only, or they're regulated like food. They're supposedly
not
only
like
containing
medicine.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Only containing sources of supplements from food products.
Yeah.
So it's all post-market. Now, like you said, you can say what you want about your perspective on government regulation, but the reality is the industry is functioning in a certain way, and it's not necessarily working. And you have to ask yourself the question, do I want to wait till there's an adverse event before something happens?
Sure.
And do I want to be that person?
Sure.
And, we're not going to sit here and solve the world's problems by deciding at what point or if government regulates things, but we can empower you as the consumer of what you want to do about it.
Yeah. Well, real quick, there are a few ways you can attend to this. One is learn who the reputable companies are that are never popped for this.
We'll get to that.
Sure. But certainly there's an ability to get some company that makes good stuff. And then that can be a thing. And understanding that companies going forward have a market pressure from more and more people to demonstrate the cleanliness and purity is a big deal, because if you have to do cleanliness and purity to sell any units, you're going to do it. if cars killed you on the first try, but someone could save a lot of money making them, nobody does that with cars, even if total absence of regulation. So it'd be like, do you want to make another car and make another bit of money? Like, it won't happen if your first car kills someone.
Yeah.
Safety is good for both sides. Transparency is good for both sides, unless it's a new market, unless the people who are consuming don't so much care or know. And many of the people producing, it's definitely some, are like not the greatest people of all time. And there's a lot of that and shady startup business bullshit.
There's a lot of fly-by-night, quick cash grab. I'll be around for 1 year, then I'll change the name of my supplement company.
It never happens to supplement companies.
It's huge in the supplement industry, unfortunately.
It's like it's the default almost.
Yeah. Now, I had one comment on when I first talked about this on our podcast. It was like, this is a problem in 2004. After that happened, they went way down, which is actually true. There was a follow-up study that was in a conference proceeding a couple years later, and the percentage had fallen to 0.7%.
Okay.
But the thing is there was no fundamental change to the industry for this not to keep happening again.
Sure.
So we're probably aware of SARMs. We're probably aware of the 20-aughts period where there were DMAA in certain products, or basically methamphetamine analogs, and they kept just changing the chemical name.
Yes.
So the same problem keeps cropping up. And there was another study that was done in 2017 where they found 10% of pre-workout energy supplements and weight loss supplements, roughly 9 to 10%, had banned stimulants in them.
I can believe that.
Absolutely.
That's at least more comfortable to believe than that your whey protein has steroids in it. Because like a lot of pre-workouts, even just on marketing and advertising, are like, this shit will fucking kill you. You're
Absolutely.
like, really? It's like, no, seriously, it might kill you. You're like, I love it. Give me 2 scoops.
Yeah.
So to me, that's not as big of a tragedy. Obviously, the ideally is something like very little of this happens. Perfect justice is difficult in a real world. But yeah, if it fell down to 1% of all stimulant-based pre-workouts, I could feel okay with that. 10% is still pretty fucking gnarly.
It is quite high. And unfortunately, it's not the only category and it's not the only data. And we can understand what's going on here. It's not always happening by the supplement company. A lot of the times it's that the manufacturers are not adhering to the standard they're supposed to.
Okay, so let's just get folks really quickly informed as to how the industry is structured. It's super simple. You have actual agro businesses that make food, like farmers, dairy farmers, shit like that. And the dairy farmers, the whey is almost useless to them, so they sell it at a massive discount to the next level, which are the distributors or manufacturers. Distributors will sell you 10 tons of whey protein in a truck. They don't give a fuck what you do with it, and it's almost free. But they're not particularly concerned with what's in it because it's a refuse product from another industry, and you said it's totally cool to buy, and they didn't put anything in there on purpose. They're not exactly like micro cleaning their mixing equipment for you. You get down to the manufacturer level after the distributor, and this is a company that you never see, heard, or named. This is something like when people open up their own supplement company, right? Like Dildo Nutrition, something we're trying to work on. And like our new dildo whey, it's the best way ever. There's a dildo mixing spoon. Like, we don't have a physical facility at which we do this. And then if we have a facility at which we put it into things, it arrives in other containers from somewhere else. And that's not the dairy farmers. There's an intermediary, and that's a manufacturer that makes a crap load of mixes and stuff. And they don't always care how pure the things are, because the next step down, supplement companies may or may not care. Now, if you're a reputable long-time supplement company, you get this right. You make sure your manufacturer shit is not only vetted prior, but also tested by you. If you're the president of Dildo Nutrition, you may not even be aware of this existing. And if you become aware of it, you're like,
Yep. And those at the manufacturing level is where a lot of the issues come, because they're servicing multiple supplement companies.
Yes.
And by multiple, sometimes we're talking, if it's big enough, dozens, exactly.
Yeah, maybe so some places serve 60 to 80% of all supplement companies in the United States.
Exactly.
If you have whey protein made in Australia, then maybe 2 or 3 companies that sell manufacturing grade whey protein, period.
Yep. And here's the issue. So you might have heard of GMP, right? General manufacturing practices. So at the manufacturing level, the FDA does have a legal standard for what is good manufacturing practices. However, again, all post hoc or post-market regulation, FDA is not knocking on the door and ensuring that you meet GMP, but you can actually pay to be third-party tested, which we'll get to. I don't want to jump into that just yet. At the manufacturing level, to say, hey, this product was made or mixed in a facility that was certified GMP. In 2013, There is an FDA audit that was done of, I think, a couple hundred of the manufacturers, just to see what's going on in the industry. And they found that 70% of them were not meeting GMP standards.
Were they labeled as GMP or no?
No.
Okay.
So we're just talking about, they just went across.
Okay, and they didn't have the seal or anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because very few are actually have the seal because they don't need to operate.
Right, it costs some money. It's not super expensive, but it's like, why even bother changing our design for a label?
Exactly.
If our customers don't care, which is kind of the root of the problem if you think about it.
Yeah, and change does happen at the customer level, and you're seeing a lot more. As this awareness happens, there's more pressure on companies to do this.
Yeah.
So if 70% of manufacturers are not adhering to manufacturing standards, we can understand where contamination occurs because you're servicing 50, 60 supplement companies and maybe some non-companies who sell things to people, right? And there's always been a very close tie to the underground drug market and the supplement industry.
A lot of the same people are involved in it.
Absolutely, because they're both involved with the bodybuilders.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's this kind of convergence of impacts that are going on here that are kind of culminating this issue. And we see consistently the same types of supplements are the ones that are most consistently adulterated. And that is sexual health, energy, pre-workout, weight loss, and muscle building.
Things you can feel oftentimes.
Yes.
So muscle building, it depends on which ones.
The muscle building ones are the ones that are more likely to have anabolic steroids.
Sure. So far, what we have is this. Many supplements are still contaminated. Usually, we'll say almost always, in doses not relevant to increase your performance or outcome in any way.
Probably depends on the brand or the type. I think if it's a pre-workout or a muscle building supplement, probably.
Pre-workout, they might have some shit in there. A muscle building pill, not like a powder, definitely something could be in there. But largely, this isn't the kind of you're on special shit when you're on it. And usually it's not the case with supplements. So we know these things for now. Eric, how deep does this go, and what are your recommendations to folks for how they can navigate the current environment?
Good question. So for how deep does this go? The most recent narrative review on this was by, I think it's Yagam and colleagues. We say Jagam.
Jagam in America.
Jagam. This is published in 2023. They estimated when they reviewed everything else, most of the studies I'm talking about and then some, that somewhere between 10 to 30% of all supplements are adulterated, which is bonkers, no matter where you are in that range.
Sure.
And I tend to agree with that conclusion. So that's how deep it goes. The question of what, and again, I mentioned the classes of supplements and what they're adulterated with for the most part, but there are some concerning things. When you look at the FDA's reports of, okay, here's all the supplements that were adulterated and we tested them, what was in them.
Yeah.
We see a lot of crazy stuff, like laxatives are very common in weight loss drugs.
That makes sense.
Right? But that can be pretty serious. Weight loss supplements, correct. Thank you. There is weight loss drugs and weight loss supplements as well.
Yeah.
In the energy-based supplements, like I said, we're talking about methamphetamines in some cases.
There's a reason that pre-workout feels a lot different than caffeine.
And that you just really want to keep taking it.
I need my pre-workout.
Yes. Another unfortunate thing is that in the sexual health realm, you're seeing a lot of things like basically erectile dysfunction drugs. And the mechanisms of actions for those and the potential drug interactions.
Pretty intense.
Yeah.
What is an example of a sexual health drug? I'm an involuntary celibate and I don't have sex, but I read about it on the internet.
So like your Viagra.
No, but the drug for sure. But what are the supplements that people are buying?
Oh yeah, so testosterone boosters, right?
They're supposed to be sexual health drugs.
Yeah, that's when you're looking at the research, like in the bodybuilding industry, you buy a testosterone booster because you're trying to get big, and it might be marketed as a muscle building supplement,
but also get your dick going.
But you might see the exact same ingredient profile be marketed more to the general public as a sexual male health enhancer.
Yes.
Right?
Feel like you did when you were 20.
Yes.
And in my case, still dry.
Yes. So anytime you're looking at a testosterone booster, that potentially has prescription grade, erectile dysfunction medication in them. Mm-hmm. And another really unfortunate thing is that a lot of the times, and this was probably when it's more intentional, the drugs that are actually being adulterated into these products, they are classes of drugs that are no longer prescribed by physicians due to safety issues.
Sure.
So that means two things. One, they're unsafe. And then two, they're
safe.
less safe. That's very good. Is that it probably being acquired by means that is maybe less than legal?
Sure. Not my fucking problem. But less than legal acquisition usually means less than high quality standards.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
So you've got these no longer being prescribed drugs being acquired illegally and put in a supplement at a high enough dose probably to have an effect.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get a market advantage.
Oh, these pills get my dick hard. Must be the testosterone.
Yeah. So I think there is actually a concern beyond just being a tested athlete and having a small dosage that could be picked up by these really high precision tests these days. If you're out there taking a lot of supplements, you're rolling the dice. And unfortunately, one, 2, or 3 out of 10 supplements is potentially adulterated.
Has there been any research onto what size of company or which companies are more or less or even not at all complicit in this? Because I imagine some companies would make it their mission statement to not have any of this stuff in there. Maybe they'd be small companies, maybe they're big companies. And some companies flat categorically don't care, or that's part of their job to put as much bullshit in there. Everything in between, of course. Has there been an index published, or do we have any kind of semblance of logic about where should we likely try to buy our supplements from if we're really concerned about that?
The latter, yes. And it's almost indirect. And I think it speaks to the fact that when you have a larger company that is trying to stake a reputation and have a sustainability in the market, that they make different decisions than one of those kind of fly-by-night, I'll just change the name on the LLC next week.
Walmart's not trying to get you to trip over your feet in the store. They want to be around a little longer.
Probably not. Yeah, I like I said, we don't have hard data on this, so I would recommend a different strategy than just buying from a big company.
What's your strategy?
We'll get to that, but here's an interesting thing. Have you ever heard of licensed products?
Yeah.
Like Creapure or Carnicin?
Sure.
So we mentioned at that kind of supply chain, one up from the supplement consumer, you might have a manufacturer who specializes in a single ingredient, like micronized creatine or beta-alanine. 2 most prominent companies that I can think of / products are Creapure, registered trademark, or Carnicin, registered trademark. And they stake their reputation on providing high quality, pure, potent versions of these ingredients. And a big enough supplement company with a big enough budget, it makes sense when you talk about economies of scale, reputation, and just not having to worry about that aspect.
Yeah, the fuck are you, a lawsuit on your table when you're making 10 million raw a month? Like,
exactly.
Fuck that. You don't need that.
Exactly. You'll see that they have Creapure in their product or Carnicin.
And that's dependable.
It has to be. And when you look up, if you just go to Creapure or Carnicin's website, they have third-party testing, they have GMP compliance.
And you're confident in that?
Absolutely. Because those licensed products, their entire business model, it's B2B, not B2C. Business to business, not business to customer.
Both people that care.
Yeah, I need to pitch this multi-million-dollar company, or sometimes multi-million-dollar company, why you should license my product instead of just making it cheap somewhere else.
Right, way cheap, and your profit margins are higher, but it's like, look, you're going to get into some bullshit if you do that.
Yeah, I'm going to end up saving you money in the long run. It's going to improve your reputation. You can put this on your brand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that is one way that is not exactly third-party testing that includes it, where you can ensure that the product you're getting is almost assuredly not contaminated, most likely. Now, that is only valid if it's the single ingredient in the product. So like if you get a pre and it has, Carnicin in it, but then a bunch of other stuff.
With pre-workout if I was lifetime drug-free. Like, it's just not worth it.
This is honestly writing this article.
I want a drug-like effect because I'm drug-free. It's already a fucking drug. Caffeine's a fucking drug. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, honestly, as someone who has been writing this article, I've vastly changed how I'm going to write my 3rd edition of my books, the supplement chapter. And I've also vastly changed my own behavior. I basically just take creatine, and only products that are third-party tested, which we'll talk about next. So you can buy the licensed product, but often they are included in multi-ingredient, formulas. And that means that, it might not be that ingredient that has a possible contaminant, but something else. So I think the way to look at this is, okay, how do I protect myself? And in this case, we go, okay, there's a higher risk of harm. So that means we need a higher threshold for the potential benefit I'm getting before I decide to pull the trigger. And ultimately, when we talk about the effect sizes that you're even going to get out of even the best supplements, my colleague, Dr. Eric Trexler at Mass, he had a great article and a great schema where he outlined different tiers of supplements from tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. Basically, any new supplement starts at tier 3, it's unproven, right? Or not proven enough to be a higher tier or a lower tier. So that is basically saying we don't have enough evidence to know whether this is worth taking. Now, this is where most people make that kind of decision. Hey, neutral to positive, just costs money, whatever. What I would say is never buy a tier 3 product, period. Because let's say it is the next creatine. What are you actually going to get out of creatine?
Be the first guy to take it, bro.
Yeah, well, you're getting really very little out of it, even if it is creatine, which to this day, there's only one creatine.
Sure.
It's the only tier 1 supplement for bodybuilding, in my opinion. Creatine, period. Nothing else, I think, matches the kind of benefit without any potential downside.
Yeah, and that you don't get it anywhere else. I think whey protein would make that, but you can get protein from a high protein diet in a different way than you can't get that much creatine from a high red meat diet.
Correct. I think protein powders are excellent, but they're conditionally useful if you need it to hit your protein targets.
Now, does caffeine not make it, or is it because it's also a food that doesn't
So no, I see caffeine as the perennial tier 2 champ.
Okay.
So what is tier 2? Tier 2 is when there is enough evidence to back it. However, the effect is only conditionally useful, or there are potential downsides that in some situations it wouldn't be useful to you.
We're talking about muscle building.
We'll say more broadly.
More broadly.
So
athletic enhancement.
So here's an example of a tier 2 supplement. I'll say citrulline malate. There's mixed data as to whether or not it'll improve performance acutely, but we don't have any long-term data showing that it'll actually improve hypertrophy. We are speculating that it will. So in my mind, that doesn't cross the threshold because again, we know the effect is not as large as creatine. So it's going to be small to trivial. And then we're assuming that what you're taking that might be improving your performance a slight bit is therefore somehow going to lead to muscle growth down the line.
Sure.
So that to me is something that goes, all right, is it worth the risk? Probably not.
Creatine, just pretty much either, for almost all people, either neutral or positive. There's just really no downsides. The toxicity is basically insanely high. What is tier 4 supplements that have been shown to be almost certainly ineffective?
There actually is a tier 5 too. So tier 4 has been...
tier 5 actively hurts you, right?
Correct. So ergolytic is tier 5. Tier 4 has been shown to be ineffective equivocally, right?
Great.
We know for sure there's no reason to buy tier 4. It's just going to burn a hole in your wallet. So everything kind of starts at 3, then it has the opportunity to climb or fall. I would probably say 9 to 9.5 supplements out of 10 go from tier 3 to tier 4. So when you're going to Vegas, like we are now, and you're going to bet on a tier 3 supplement, you're already looking at 2 things. More than likely, it's not going to be tier 2. And more than likely, if it does become tier 2 or tier 1, the effect is going to be very small.
Yeah.
So there's no benefit to being an early adopter.
Yeah. I often, people will ask me about, like, do you hear about XYZ new supplement? I'm like, no, don't care.
Yeah.
If it's great, we'll know about it. I'm not trying to test that shit out of my own body.
Yeah. So you have very little upside. And unfortunately now, as I've come to learn with the adulterated contaminants and all this stuff, a pretty high chance of a downside. A much more if you think, okay, hey, there's 6 bodybuilding supplements that I want to take that are on the quote unquote evidence-based list.
Yeah.
And you could make a defensible list.
Yeah.
The odds are one of them, if you're not actually buying third-party tested or, licensed products, is going to be contaminated.
Yeah.
So I think you really want to evaluate the neutral to positive effect of supplements differently than you would say, you know what, I'm going to get a velocity tracker instead of doing RPE.
Sure.
Or you know what, I'm going to try doing some static stretching on my off day.
Yeah.
Those things might benefit you and they have very little possible downside. A supplement is not just the cost to your wallet. It is a potential cost to your, can you imagine if Eric Helms failed the drug test? What that would do to my life.
That shit.
Man.
I always knew this guy's a fucking drug fiend. So, first thing is, most supplements don't do shit. Stick to the top 5. Second, if you don't even have to take the top 5 because most of them aren't that great, it could be replaced with food, contextually dependent. And then so for them, you can even consider, like, do you really want 5 supplements? Maybe it's like 1 to 3.
Yes.
Then in those 1 to 3, you want lab tested, vetted, third party approved. We for sure don't have any drugs in them. And then you're into this zone of, like, you're pretty outside of freak incidences or giant conspiracies. You probably don't have any weird drugs in your body. And if you are not untested and you're not competing currently and you're taking a bunch of drugs, no worries. You can probably regress back to, like, just take the top 5 best supplements. Just make sure that with your pre-workouts and stuff, you're maybe choosing reputable brands that don't have actual meth in them. Or if you like meth, choose the ones with meth in them. Jack 3D, the original formula.
If you're already getting illicit drugs, why not just get meth, Mike?
Pre-workouts still work, man.
Fair.
You're not up for 36 hours with them generally.
I guess that makes
That's
more
good.
sense.
Yeah.
See, this is just a silly natty speaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's an excellent summary. When you're looking for third-party testing, do be aware that some companies just kind of put, kind of the same way you can put natural on a label and it means nothing.
Quote unquote.
You want to look for reputable, like look it up. Like you've got a phone, you're in a supplement store, you're online.
Just ask ChatGPT what the best
open
things
another
for testing
tab.
supplements are.
Yeah, like Aegis Shield, NSF, Informed Choice, Informed Sport. There's a bunch of them out there now. They differ by country. And typically the local arm of WADA has a lot of information on this.
Great.
We also have more information in that article that's linked below. But I basically just want to caution people that you want to know what's in your supplement. And sometimes, and we've only talked about the stuff that shouldn't be in there, but there's also rampant issues of what is supposed to be in there is not even in there, or it's vastly underdosed.
Yeah. Amino acid spiking and stuff like
Correct.
that. We can get back to that some other time. There'd be a lot to say. Eric, thank you so much for helping us get educated on this. And you wanted to promote your new supplement line called MySupplementsAreTheBest.xxx, I believe.
Correct. I will first plug massresearchreview.com. But after that, absolutely MySupplementsAreTheBest.com. Link below. We don't do third-party testing because
we are the third party.
We are the third party. If you don't trust us, you don't trust yourself
science
or
even.
science. That's right.
Folks, trust science. See you guys next time.